Started?
I am.
Okay. So welcome everyone. This is week 2 of Local DAO Summer, which is 6 weeks. Really amazing sessions with very inspiring people doing challenging work for us. And yeah, so there's a link in the chat for the event if you want to share it, and it has all the information where to subscribe to the calendar and join the Telegram group. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you. I'm Elizabeth Herald. I'm the founder of an organizational design model called Water Unity Network. And I know we're here with a lot of sort of technology-oriented people, and I'm here to remind us to keep track and keep grounded in the source of life. Specifically talking today about the urban landscape as a watershed, and sort of looking at shifting some perspectives, because to me that's really the core of the issue that we face, is reminding people that water does not come from the tap, it comes through the tap. And in Africa they are sort of in a life or death situation with water, very immediately a crisis, whereas we are a little bit more mitigated from it. So I'm gonna share my screen here a minute. Hang on. So we tend to separate water from ourselves, when in essence 99% of our molecules by molecular count are water molecules. We're 75, 65 to 85, depending on weight, age, so forth. Water by volume, but if you count the number of molecules in our body, we're 99% water, because water molecules are much smaller. So one of the things to realize is that the creativity of nature is a constant. It is, all of life on Earth is the infinite creative expression of water, expressing itself as life. And when we think of water on Earth, we don't inquire too deeply about it. And yet most of the water on Earth is older than the sun, and that the sun was formed out of a sort of cloud of molecules, of which water or interstellar ice is a large part of it. And so any conversation about our interconnectedness as a species with life and nature's interconnection, it always will involve water. And humans tend to separate the urban landscape from the natural world, and yet water falls and flows through both of them equally, or maybe not equally, but certainly through them. And there's a lot of challenges that our urban landscapes have presented that we really don't pay attention to or aren't really aware of. And the biggest is that the impervious surfaces of our pavement and our buildings, the water quickly runs off and doesn't sink into the ground. So that's one of the biggest challenges, along with the pollutants that come with it, that as it washes through these impervious surfaces, it picks up everything that's there on the ground. Seems like this is a very complicated story, but life is complicated. The difference between complicated and complex, right? Complicated describes a system like an airplane that's built from many parts that can be separated out and put back together, and that's complicated. A living system is complex in that the complexity, it's multifaceted, multi-dimensional, multi-layered, and it's impossible to separate any elements out of that system without degrading the system. So embracing this complexity and managing the complexity is really sort of an 80-degree turn from the dominant perspective that reduces everything to pieces and parts. And so this is something to be aware of when we're addressing how we can look at the urban landscape as a part of the natural world. And in fact, as a landscape, when you think of the amount of water that falls on a building, a skyscraper, that's like a mountain, and it's pouring down the sides and, you know, funneling into the drainages and running right out to the ocean. So part of participating in nature means inviting nature to participate with us and looking at the sort of nature of water and how it flows and how it behaves, what is its intelligence and its innate intelligence, and being able to address that as we face these human-caused imbalances in our planetary hydrologic cycle, which is at the very heart of the climate crisis, is the water cycle out of balance and seeking to come back into balance, because water always seeks homeostasis, it seeks balance. So, you know, as we go through this, this is intended to be a participatory workshop. I'm going to open it up here, and I have a document I'm going to share, and I'll share it online. But I'm also going to put a copy in the chat if I can find my window again. There we are. Let's see if I can find it. Urban landscape. And looking at the perspectives and also looking at the innovations that are coming up, and also the I had to look this word up, but I really like it. The extitutions, which are a little bit new theory of thought. Okay, come on, where is it? Finding the right window, hang on. Urban landscape. Okay, come on. Sorry, I'm not that familiar with Google Meet, so I'm a little bit stumbling around a bit. Here's the link I'm putting in the chat. I can find my chat. There's my chat. All right. So one of the challenges we have on the planet is that we are dehydrating the land, and that the water is not sinking and spreading and hydrating the earth. It runs off, and that's the essence of sort of root cause of the flood drought cycle, is that the water runs off and then it becomes hydrophobic. When it rains again, it's not sinking in, and this whole cycle begins to cause more and more problems. There's some big challenges, like why I went to New York Climate Week last year and realized how much tech is driving the climate mitigation conversation, and there's very little attention to the nature-based solutions. There's this year, just in the course of the year, it's certainly seemed to have picked up, but recognizing that, like, why would we be looking at nature-based solutions first? You know, technology is amazing. We're all on our technological devices here, and we're talking from all over the world. And, you know, why can technology not solve this problem? And, you know, part of it is that it is not really a technological problem. It's a living systems challenge that we're facing. And so to me, in my thinking, it would make sense to align with the nature of water in solving these problems and coming back into alignment with the natural world, because we have the sense from, you know, since we first started planting crops, cutting down trees and planting crops, that we could control nature, and that it was our need, necessity, and almost right to do so. But in reality, we have a delusion of separation that is keeping us from solving whole systems problems. And so looking at ways that we can sort of shift that mindset. And to me, that's the biggest problem. We really have all the solutions that we need. We know that if we, you know, revegetate the land and sink the water and create good soil, that we begin to regenerate the small water cycle. And so with cities, it's a different thing, because we don't have the same we don't have the same land base to work with. We have a lot of pavement, and so part of that is how can we make our cities more sponge-like, so that the rain that's falling is in fact soaking. And part of that is rain gardens or green roofs, or there's a lot of innovations that are coming. And most of our water channels in the cities have been straightened, and the water streams through them very quickly, when in fact rivers are meant to meander. And part of that meandering is the cleaning that happens as the water makes a bend. The pollutants and the debris and the sediment drops out in the corners of the rivers, and the river cleans itself as it goes, and also the vegetation, the riparian zones. So flooding is a serious challenge in the cities. You think about Hurricane Sandy and how they've now shown that the areas that had retained the dunes had a lot less damage than the areas that had the houses right on the shoreline. And flooding worldwide, not certainly all over, like 95% of the floods in Asia in the last 20 years, it's like in Bangladesh and India and Pakistan, Nepal, the Indus River, the glaciers melting. Like, this is something we're really needing to face. And so addressing this in our cities is, I think, something that we could really do a significant impact with. And part of this is looking at how DAOs could serve us in that, and in shifting our perspective to less thinking that the municipalities are going to deal with it, and more create neighborhood groups that are taking care of the water where we live, where we are, and working with the city to create more sustainable urban development or water sensitive design that allows the water to have areas where it can gather and sink rather than storm off when it rains. And then there's creating bioswales in the parks that exist, or permeable pavements, or and certainly a lot of the cities were originally wetlands, and so can some of that be restored where it's possible? Certainly on the edges, where if the city is on the ocean shore, creating wetlands that can, I know San Francisco has it on the bay side, that they've kept the dunes, they've And so a lot of cities are built right on the shore itself. So going down, if you've gotten to this document, I'm still not sharing it. Sorry, getting distracted. All right, let me try to share it again, see if I can find it. Oh, there you go. Okay. So some of the innovations in looking at how DAOs can serve this sort of renaissance of watershed management inside the urban landscape. And in doing my research, a lot of these things were talking about the real life potential and not too many real life examples that are really actually working as a DAO. So can be community managed water trusts where the neighborhood works with the traditional municipal water authorities to be water stewards and water monitors, and with water quality testing and so forth, using sensors for monitoring, gathering the data on water quality and runoff and how things are working, getting that feedback. Blockchain ecosystem service markets where the trading of ecosystem services, whether it's carbon credits or water purification or the habitat restoration, could actually have value and not just be a budget that's spent, but could have value and restore that sort of value of the natural world being kept intact. So I'm just going to take a pause for a minute and get some feedback from everyone here. And I really want to thank everybody for showing up. I see my beloved soul here with me. And just take a minute if you've been able to open and look at this document. And so where would you like to focus in the time that we have to sort of address some of these challenges? And this document will stay open, like I just did sort of, one or two examples for these, and I would love us to fill it out and get more examples and get even start contacting these groups and begin to really form these sort of citizen-led community councils that allow us to address the challenges that we face, because we have a small window of opportunity, and it's clear that the corporate world and certainly the government agencies are ill-equipped to solve the problem, and part of that is that they are benefiting from the system. So it's not, they're not really going to change the system. They're not as motivated to change the system if they're benefiting from the system. And a lot of the people that are suffering most from the impacts and consequences of climate crises are the people that have the less power in terms of affecting change. So I really see that there's a lot of human capital that could be gathered and raised by forming community groups and getting underserved communities to organize around taking care of where they live. So I would love to get some feedback on this concept and this idea, and if people have examples that I haven't mentioned, let's open it up.
Thank you so much for this presentation and for reminding us that water is the source of life. Yeah, I live in Brooklyn in Red Hook, so it's a waterfront community that was hit really hard by Sandy.
Right.
And, yeah, and so there is a lot of, I just connected with an organization called Resilient Red Hook, but it seems like they haven't been really active since since COVID. And then I know that people care about the water in this community, and because we're right on the water, but there doesn't seem to be an organized group that's taking action on this.
Right.
So I'm really grateful that you put this resource together. Definitely going to explore and see what we can implement here. There's city housing developments here, so there are underserved communities as well.
Hello, kitty tail.
But yeah, I'm just not really sure where to start, is the thing.
Yeah. Well, as I've studied this problem, the gap that I've really identified is so many people care. So many people have heard and know that we have to do something, but we don't have the organizational design structure that allows us to have an impact in a reasonable scale, right? The individual is too small, and even the municipality is too big. It really is, as I see it, small pockets of people that can organize, but then they're connecting to each other so that we're working in this hyper radical collaboration that could be tracked on blockchain, right? It could really allow us to do what we need to do. And I have my two of my dear African friends, Kareem and Muhengi. Kareem's in Conakry, and Muhengi is and really emphasizing that especially the global South, it's a big problem, even in the cities, that they don't have the infrastructure, and then there's conflicts, and suddenly there's thousands of refugees pouring into a community that was peaceful and is now no longer as peaceful because now their inadequate infrastructure is being stretched way beyond its limit to take care of the people that are coming in. So it's and then there's the immigration, the sort of genius drain of the population of the young people leaving. And so there's so many interconnected challenges, and we can't solve things in isolation. We really have to look at everything as a whole system, because trying to solve things in isolation just creates more isolation.
Right.
And I know that a lot of Africa has a really significant wet dry cycle where it's dry and then it gets torrential rain. So there's not a balance in managing that. So how could that torrential rain be stored in the ground for which it used to be that when you get these torrential rains, it would be stored in the ground so that in the dry season, it's still nourishing the plants. But now the water tables are dropping, and yeah, so, with regards to just where you are, so this group in Red Hawk, the first thing is to come in and kind of as a champion and say, hey, do we know who else is working on this? I every day hear of 3 other groups in New York boroughs that are trying to be good water stewards. So connecting them in a collaborative fashion, like the Billion Oyster project is really exciting to be bringing back the immensely abundant oysters that were in the New York Harbor before pollution took them out, and then there are none in less than 25 years. And water systems all over the planet are under stress. I mean, that is really what we're facing, is that we have not managed our relationship to the source of life in a way that allows life to continue to thrive. We've impacted it and broken that relationship. We're in this delusion of separation that somehow water comes from the tap. Right? So, Charles, would you like to say a few words for us? And you're a wealth of knowledge, I know.
Oh my. I had to go find my phone. Th Thanks for throwing me in the pool here. I don't know. I'm just listening. I'm a bit I'm a bit multitasking, I confess.
Okay.
But I'm trying to go actually jump in the lake right after this. So I'm going to immerse in the water for sure. Um, but gosh, I don't know what to say within all of that. I mean, I can bring in just as some of you know, I'm involved in this framework concept, going toward incorporation of an initial cooperative to reflect this governance structure within networks, and so owning the data and sharing the data within networks, and then being able to coordinate in a whole variety of ways and decide together and so on. And so I'm hearing, you know, all that through this lens, this bigger lens. And I think obviously there's lots of stuff that we can pick up on from our earlier conversations. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I look forward. I mean, I made a little sticky note. I got a list going of people I want to share this session with. So that's also where I'm at. There's very particular stuff to point to and connect you with. So check. Thanks.
Yeah, and
Thanks for all your work.
Thank you, Charles. I see this as a starting point, and you know, certainly there's ways we can use technology not only to support the work, but also to actually design our technological systems to mimic the nature of water, and just in the way water moves and the way water flows, and how we function within technology, and certainly the ethos that we're all connected through water. The covalent hydrogen-oxygen bond is the common bond of all life.
So let me quickly come back in just to tag on there
Yeah, sure.
and point to this link, which I'm sure, Eliza, I shared with you earlier, like years ago. But it's been a wonderful collection of sort of design principles, if you will, around water and how it flows and acts in nature. And so I'll just call attention to that. But then my question is actually, because we have this thing that we're now calling networked adaptive organisms. And so this idea of adaptive and living systems and organisms, I'm wondering, it's an interesting question. How does that relate to what you were just sharing in the nature of water, right? As a living system, but then as an adaptive, you know, this is like kind of a funny puzzle there. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get this picture up. A dear friend who lives in New York, Eve, Betsy Damon, is an artist that created a living garden in the heart of Chengdu, China, which is a very large urban center, and from the very polluted Nan River. And she's a performance artist. She started as a performance artist, and she had these dancers with white silk in the river, washing the silk, and the silk got dirtier being washed. The river was so polluted and so bad. And she created this garden, and the water would come in the top of the garden and go through the flow forms of the garden. And by the end of traveling through this small little city park, the water was clean. That she had cleaned the water and it was drinkable through the little riparian pockets and the curves and the way she had the water move through the design of the park, that the water actually got cleaned by the end and could be drinkable. And I'm going to try to get these pictures, but maybe I'll pass the mic to Muhengi. Would you like to say something? Share with us some of what you're doing in Uganda? You didn't know I was going to put you on the spot, did you? We're not hearing you, dear. Are you on mute? Maybe your mic isn't connected. All right. Yeah, we're not getting you. We're not getting your audio. How about Kareem? Kareem created something we called the water bar, which he basically had 6 water filters in buckets just on the side of where he lived, and people could come and get filtered water just from these 6 buckets set up on a table. I mean, some of these solutions are so very simple so some of the things I'm interested in is certainly the commons and the idea of creating commons. And one of the fellows that we are working with in Africa is in Senegal, and he was educated outside of the country. And when he came back, they asked to his traditional village, they asked him if he would be the mayor. And is a very traditional village. And he said he would only be the mayor if the village committed to become an eco-village and a commons. And certainly in African culture, there's already much managed as a commons, but they agreed. And now he's on the road to turn 100 traditional villages into eco-villages. And to me, these kinds of very simple, where a champion takes an idea and starts making it happen. And the biggest challenge there is how do we crowdsource the financial support that allows these things to actually get past that transitional period into self-sufficiency, where they're not needing the funds to function. They're now taking care of themselves. So rather mercurial, you mentioned that you live on the edge of a wetlands and is now covered in suburbia. That's certainly the case for the Central Valley of California, which before Europeans arrived, it had amazing indigenous land management, where they really managed the tules and they managed the oaks and they did cool burns, and they had phenomenal relationship with the land. And it was so abundant that they said that the sky would just blacken with flocks of birds, and there was grizzlies and deer and pronghorn antelope and wolves and cougars, and it was just a phenomenal ecosystem. And in less than 50 years, it was gone. It's amazing how quickly we can damage an ecosystem if it's not being replenished and revitalized. So Jim, you're talking about natural filters and natural solutions being more cost effective. That's so true. And recognizing that nature-based solutions are really, because we're working with the natural system, not against it. And nature will always resist being manipulated. Nature does not like to be controlled. Nature wants to do what she wants to do. And our mindset that it's our responsibility to control it is actually degrading it for the future generations of descendants. One of the largest freshwater lakes was Tulare Lake in southern Central Valley, and it came back these last few years with all the rains we had, but it's pretty much now only a vernal lake that comes and goes, rather than because it was very shallow, it's all been drained off for agricultural purposes. So one of the solutions I've come up with is what I call the Watershed Wisdom Council concept, which is what I said, these small group councils that are connecting to each other, and we all can play a different part or a different role and, you know, focus on this or focus on that. But if we're actually connecting these efforts that we have, and we do need the technology to do that. Not to do it, we need it to support it. We're the ones that are doing it, and we could still do it even if we don't have the technology. But technology definitely helps because it's a very low cost mass coordination tool. Do we have audio for you now, Muhengi? Not yet? What about you, Kareem? Do we have audio from you?
Try. If
Yeah.
you hear me, uh, my name's Kamara Abdul Karim. I'm from Guinea Conakry, West Africa. I'm the president of the NGO, national NGO called Youth Evolutions. And at the same time, a founding member of Water Unity Networks. We are actually working, in the visions of Water Unity Networks to restore our planetary ecosystem, because it's so important to take care of our water, our forests, and everything that sustains our life on Earth. And via Youth Evolution, we are young people. I aim to help other African young people to be safer from illegal immigrations, which is killing and impoverishing young Africans peoples. And actually, the world is witnessing that what is happening. But we have really decided to change and to make a balance about that by finding solutions, working with experts, our internal expert like Elizabeth Rosers. It was really a very great opportunity to meet Elizabeth, because since that, personally, my life has improved, and I'm personally glad about that. And still, she is working through Water Unity Networks to help activate a lot of young peoples, at least to have a thriving life where they are, instead of and from that, we have created a water bar, as I said, Eliza. That water sanctuary, water bar is serving our community to get access to clean water for free. And actually, it's helping so much, because water scarcity is a big problem in Africa, in West Africa, maybe in other African countries, but mostly I know mines. The clean water, access to clean water is very big challenges for our community. But as we have started working with Water Unity Networks, and the solutions it's bringing are very appreciated and so important for our communities. And we intend to develop our activities, because soon Youth Evolution NGO, our members, we are organized and ready to go. We want to participate also in our country cleanup, also creating job opportunities for young people so that they will stay here instead of going into countries where they are not welcome. For now, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Eliza. And if some other person has something to say, then it's good. It's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like friend Matthew has joined. Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you all doing? Sorry I'm late. I had another Another conflict.
That's all right. No conflicts. Yeah, so I have a document. I'll share the link again. That's kind of a starting point for this. The idea is that this is only a starting point, that this is certainly a big challenge to manage our urban landscape as an integrative whole watershed, and how we can really help the water sink in our cities rather than storm off and carry all the pollutants with it. And can we clean it before it reaches the ocean? Yeah, so Matthew is with HoloChain, so we're very honored to have him join us, and would love to. And part of this exploration is how technology can help us with this, and the idea of exploring how DAOs and blockchain and other types of sort of Web3 applications can help serve the mission. I know, Mahangi, do you have audio now?
Sure. I don't know. Do you hear me now?
We hear you now. Wonderful. So
great.
Which is a DAO that he's again working with the young people of Uganda.
Yes, please. I'm very, very glad meeting all of you here in such a good environment. I can tell from your smiles and from your voices, we are optimistic about what we are doing. And as global partners, we are definitely looking forward to a better world. I've been to several meetings, and I should call them the mainframe kinds of meetings. And the people are no longer enthusiastic about what the systems are actually planning out there. And just like Eliza said, it's only those who are benefiting from the systems that are actually still working for the systems. I believe in this kind of time and day, everyone has actually set out their mind to what's the true purpose of humanity? Why are we living on a planet that we are actually consuming and destroying in every way? Why are all our innovations and all the big projects that we are supporting actually destroying the environment? This consciousness is growing in everyone's mind, and I get very many different people out there giving you this thumbs up of, I don't really know exactly what you're doing, but if you're fighting for nature and the environment, we are destroying this. So please keep going ahead. Keep going ahead. Yeah. So 2016, I'd just graduated from the university, and I'd only worked for 2 years in the capital city here in Uganda, in Kampala. But then my heart was back at home because I felt like this was a personal kind of calling deep inside of me. I did not feel like it was a definition of success for me when I left my hometown community and started building all these mansions and driving the very best cars in a very far away land. And my people would only hear about me or hear from me when I come back, for example, in the festive December season. For me, it felt like there was something totally wrong with this kind of mental setup. So I decided to go back to my hometown and then go through all the ages that I had growing up in my childhood. I'd connected a lot with the neighborhood, and almost everyone in the area already knew me, and I already knew about the infrastructure around, the nature around, and almost all the resources available in my community. But then I had to establish a new face for myself, because when you go back to your hometown, everyone thinks about you as so and so's son, especially when your father maybe is well known in the area or something. No one will ever look at you as yourself and actually look at how much knowledge and skills and experience you have gained. So I had to fight a lot and get my head out of my family wing so that everyone would realize what I'm doing and connect to it. So I founded what we called the New Hometown World Movement. We started out a movement that is founded out of love for one another, love for your family, and love for your immediate community. And we called this Flip Town. Flip Town came as a small flip in the mindset of our people, because most of our people have actually, I don't want to say they have been brainwashed, but it's something very close to that. For example, I'll just give you an example from the farming community, because farming is one of the backbones of my community here. You find that farmers buy pesticides and they buy fertilizers because they have heard of adverts on the radio and everything, and they get these fertilizers to their soil, and after some time, 5 years down the road, all the farmers are going to be complaining, I use this kind of fertilizer and I cannot get any more yield from my soil. So the radios are pumping them with a lot of information and assuring them that if you use this kind of fertilizer, you're definitely going to be getting much more output for your garden and for your input. And then here we came up with something that says, hey, look here, these are all just selling to you things so that you can put them in your soil, and in the very long run, you're going to be destroying your entire land. It's not going to be productive at all. So the people want to understand exactly what we are talking about when we say regenerative farming activities, for example. They understand what we are talking about when we say we want to rejuvenate nature. We want the forest to come back. We want to keep our interactions with nature and all its biodiversity. But their biggest problem is the fact that they have been sold to very many ideas and different ways of making money. And what seems to be their biggest problem right now is how to survive. So we came up with a kind of decentralized structure. That was 2016. By then, I had actually not heard a lot about DAOs and all these systems. But in my mind, I felt like I needed a system that did not have a central figure, like the common bureaucratic system where everyone must go and report to a central figure to have approval of something they are doing. I wanted us to keep rewarding everyone that does something good in the life of the other in the neighborhood. So we started out by, first of all, sharing about ourselves as people. That was the very first resource we had. Instead of knowing me as a son to so and so, I need you to know me by myself and know the kinds of skills that I have and know my perspective of my immediate environment and our community. So we were building a kind of pride for our community. And then it actually didn't take long. I think in just 2 years, everyone was jumping on this kind of, I love my town, I love my town, I love this and this. And everyone started connecting because they found a kind of common pride for all of them. Everyone would feel like, oh my God, this is about my town. I better do something about this. So we also utilize the common social media platforms. We've been using Facebook, Instagram, and mostly WhatsApp for a period of time now, especially WhatsApp for organizing our local groups for communication and everything. So in 2019, towards COVID, we were very popular in the community, but as young people. And then definitely the elders and the other generation would look at us as, oh my God, those are just young people getting together to bribe us in a way so that we can support them, especially when they saw us, for example, cleaning the roads on the streets. And then in the night, we have a show in the club. So they're like, no, they just want to confuse us so that we can support them during day, but they're definitely going to have a very different life in the night. So we were integrating this natural love for entertainment and using this power to convert it into real activity on the ground. For example, hey, if you come and clean the town with us, instead of paying 10,000 Uganda shillings for the show in the evening, you have achieved a number of tokens, which is equivalent to the number of to the amount of money we would request for you to enter the show. So if you just cleaned with us twice, you will enter the show free of charge. And then this was attracting a lot of youth. And at the same time, we already had this kind of program where we were telling everyone, hey, we should be proud of our land. We should be proud of our families, proud of our communities. So let's keep posting about our land and our communities. So this became a kind of promotional structure for everyone, especially the very talented young people that had not explored using social media to promote their talent. Most of them had actually been booked in the old format of taking their music and arts to the radio stations, paying a little money there. So we had an advantage because we were coming up and using social media where they were seeing their numbers grow. On the radio, you might never get to know who is listening into your stuff or something, but this time they were assured of the numbers that were actually following their stuff and everything. And our movement kept growing. Actually, when you check it out, we have never done any kind of advertising on Facebook or Instagram. Everything that is there is purely organic, and we did this because of lack of a better platform. If we had the resources to create a platform that would actually let us interact with each other and let us interact with our community and mobilize them for different things, we would have set up that way. So after 2019, we entered the COVID era. We had actually opened up a kind of hub where we had to come together and share our different ideas and also invite the different authorities and leadership figures in our community so that they could clearly understand what kind of vision we had. So as we were entering COVID, it was a very terrible time for our community. But as the founder of the DAO, I felt like there was a blessing in disguise in the COVID period, because almost the entire community turned to our WhatsApp group for support. They started sharing real messages of, hey, I don't have any kind of food in my family. And I saw a lot of powerful things happening within the period of COVID, because I saw people exchange food locally without waiting for any help from the government or something. I saw people sharing openly about what they felt like about the situation, and very many of them got very connected with us and the platform and each other. So when COVID was when the lockdown was pulled down and our community was back to business as usual, we were looking forward to actually educating them more about what it means to have a decentralized structure. Right now, in our WhatsApp groups, we have almost all the leaders, including the mayor of the council. We have the local chairman, the local chairperson 5 of the council. We have almost all the youth leaders from the entire district are part of our Fliptown WhatsApp groups, and we keep using these groups to share out all this information. So recently, I was very excited when I met Eliza, because I felt like what we had was a global dream to have families reunite and care about each other and also care about their neighborhood. And now here comes Eliza, who says nature should have been organized like the water. And now who says no to that? That is something that is really perfect, because we all know water is one. And we all know water as a common thing in every community around the world. And we all know how stable water is and how it helps almost every industry on the planet. And if there is a kind of imbalance to the water, it is the problems that we are facing as humanity. So I've been so excited joining the Water Unity Networks. Actually, yesterday we had a small meeting with Eliza, and I think I had a lot of engagements to go in for, but after the meeting, I had to run and check out all these platforms and go deeper into the idea of the water networks, because I felt like, how about if I could convince my community to actually upload our data into the water networks and have our, because we already have a clear picture of a very, let me call it analog, decentralized kind of system, because we previously had used spreadsheets, we used Google Docs, and we have very many meetings, physical meetings, where people come and explain what they did, for example, on the previous activity, and they earn their tokens so that we can settle everything openly. Now I was looking at a possibility of migrating all this data into the Water Unity networks, so that we can have a clear picture of what a very active, decentralized kind of community would be like in the water network. And then I would definitely look forward to meeting all of you. I'm glad I can see Karim here. I can see Eve here. I see Matthew. I see Jim and the PDX. I'm very excited about knowing more about your organizations and most especially your ideas and how you look at the world and how we can evolve together, because this is a very challenging period of time, especially because everyone is writing their own history on their own. I've been telling this to the young people in my community. Some 50, 100 years back, you would have only one book that tells about a very powerful man in history who discovered this and discovered that. But today, everyone has an account of their history every single day, because social media is asking you what's on your mind and you must update this. So the future is going to look back to this as a solid history of what was happening when the world was actually looking for solutions to the problems we have right now. Like we have the entire nature and climate change problem. And we are the real actors in the grassroots that are actually taking these steps. So if we get to our social media platforms, for example, and instead of posting about the problem we are trying to solve, we go about posting the good food that we are eating and the the small happy times that we have, we might confuse the generations that will come up after us in the future, because they're going to look back to us and say, this kind of activity was very intense in the year 2024. Let's look back and see what our grandfathers said about it some 100 years back. And then when they get back and they scroll your platform that was active at that time, and you were quiet, you didn't say anything about climate change, everyone is going to look at you like you were supporting the destruction of the climate, you were supporting the destruction of nature, and maybe you didn't want to say anything about the solution to that. So this is a time we need to spark up a very powerful movement that is actually focused on nature. It should be very loud, louder than all the political movements on the planet, louder than all the money systems on the planet. It should be very loud that in every community, in every home, we can have a relationship with nature and the direct community around us. So I'm very excited meeting all of you. I'm very, very glad that Eliza has actually a very big platform that is willing to offer to all the kinds of people out there that are looking forward to organizing themselves along the watershed. And I believe this is something very powerful that I want to thank you, Eliza, for. And I know very many of you here have something to share with the entire community that is here. So I look forward to all the energy that we can have together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, sure.
Would anybody like to offer any thoughts on what's been set up till now? I saw rather mercurial giving us lots of hearts. I'm
I
sorry
can
that
just say, wow, I'm just very excited to be here and to be witness and to go back and review and map out and connect up, of course. Thank you, everybody.
yeah. Thank you, Charles. I'm sorry that Matthew had to jump off. I was hoping he could offer us a little bit of insight as to how he sees holochain being able to work. Is anybody here familiar with holochain at all? Rather Mercurial, would you like to let us know what you know of it? I saw your thumbs up, or is that just a enthusiasm?
My brain is far too small to know much about holochain, but I can't help but be just astounded and inspired by all of the work that folks are doing there. Seeing all of the intention and just this massive body of careful consideration for how they're building, not just technological solutions, but building technological interfaces for the ways we naturally relate to one another as human beings and to our environment overall. It gives me a lot of hope. And in a world, I'm in Northern California, and well, our environment is just collapsing everywhere around us. We're full of more and more suburbs. We have in various communities 8 to 10, sometimes more, empty, gigantic houses for every homeless person on the street, sitting there empty so they can fill investor pockets. Um,
Right.
it's absolute insanity. Not to mention all of the uh, absolutely scary techno-fascist colony projects happening all around us. It seems like oftentimes I'm screaming into the void, trying to get people to pay attention to the smoke-filled air around us. It's a clear morning, and I can't see the hills 15 miles away right now.
Right.
It,
Where
it
are
it
you in
brings me to
Northern
tears every
California?
day, and yeah, it's wonderful to hear folks working in such an intentional way, solving such big problems.
Yeah.
Well, attempting to solve. Maybe we can't solve them, but we can try together.
Well, yeah, and if we can at least do our part, right? If each one of us does what we can do where we are, and do it in a semi-coordinated way, I think we can have it, and just come back into alignment. And Muhangi and I were talking about this yesterday about flipping the mirror. He talks about flip down. It's like I've always said, we just need to flip the mirror. We need to kind of look at what we're doing and who we are truly as life on Earth. Where are you in Northern California, Brother Mercurial?
I'm in the Central Valley ecoregion in Greater California. So yeah, right in the what used to be that beautiful wetland that you were describing, and is now dry hills for miles around.
Yeah. So I'm in Nevada County. So we're in the same watershed.
Howdy, neighbor. It's an honor to share water with you.
Yeah, likewise. And this is in terms of working with my home waters. Certainly the Sacramento and the San Joaquin create one of the most amazing ecosystems on the planet, in that it's draining in an area the size of Portugal, basically, bigger even, from north and south, and coming out through the San Francisco Bay. And the amount of nursery function for the fish and the birds, and for all the migratory birds that go, stop there to lay their eggs and then continue on. And the same thing with the New York Harbor. These two amazing estuaries on either side of the planet really, really need help. And it would heal without us if humans were gone. Earth would come back into homeostasis. But we're still here, and we're still impacting it. And so we have to alter that balance and think about ways that we can work with the nature instead of against it. And yeah, so I really appreciate you all coming. It's the website, I'll put it in here, is waterunity.life. And I'm going to be also, I have 2 more sessions, one next week and one on the 6th week. Well, we'll continue to talk on this, and really want to inspire those of us that love technology to apply that technology to help us solve these problems. And feel free to go onto that document and add to it if you have links that you want to put in there, or have comments or reflections. Just create a space for yourself and add to it.
Did you share your doc in the Telegram group?
I will share it in the Telegram. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to say anything before we close? Jim, I know you're there. I'm kind of prompting everybody to put their voice in, even if it's just for a few words. We'd love to hear from you. It's probably multitasking.
Yes, yeah, I'm doing a few things. Thanks for just sharing. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to help however I can. I do have some experience with natural water filtration. And it can be set up and it's cost effective. It doesn't necessarily restore groundwater, but you can clean rainwater and stuff like that. I also just suggest people, especially if you live in dry climate, digging holes is remarkably effective. It sounds
Yeah.
simple, but sometimes that's what works.
Yeah, there's actually a movement happening in the Sahel, which is where the desertification of the Sahara is encroaching, where they're simply digging these little half moon crescent shaped depressions in the ground to catch the water as it lands, and it's reforesting itself. So I'm putting the website in. So the Water Unity Network is a sort of social organizational framework and set of tools and navigational charts to help us rebalance our planetary hydrologic cycle. And it's very evident that if we are able to revitalize our local water cycle, that directly ripples out to impact the bioregional water cycle and outwards further into the planetary water cycle, because it is all connected and we are all one water on Earth. And humans are integral to the watershed. It's not just the water landing on the terrain, it's the water that we're carrying through our body from place to place. That is part of the watershed. So thank you all for your attention and for your time and for your input. I really appreciate it.
Just a small interception, please, before you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say something that actually comes directly from the watershed, from your vision, Eliza, of the watersheds, to what we have done as a decentralized autonomous organization on the ground here at Fliptown. I've definitely not shared this yet with you, Eliza, but let me put a link here for all of you. This is the only water source in my town. This link actually goes to YouTube. A friend of mine had come from Germany to come and check out this project. I don't want to call it a project because it is work for the local people, our work as a community. So this dam dried up completely for the very first time in 2018 and totally dried up. And there was no water in the pipes in the whole town. But the people in the town were not even aware of where they get the water from. People are happy because they have water in their houses, but they don't even trace back these pipes and try to find out where we get water for the entire season. So we had to move uphill to this dam, and we had to take photographs and videos of what was happening exactly at the dam. And then we mobilized people and talked to them about the possibility of losing real seasons of water and having the taps having no water for a long time if we cannot fight for our only watershed that is remaining. And the people actually picked up with our messages. They joined us to get up to the dam and clean it. We have created a program around cleaning the dam, and people volunteer coming and picking up all the plastics and everything that would clog the dam. Voluntarily, even the locals near the dam have given us their land to plant some of these trees, like mangroves and stuff like that, that can actually revive the dam. And we have not had that dam dry up since the time when it first gave us that very bad sign. So people actually keep working and knowing that if we don't work, we are definitely going to see some bad water days. We have to make sure we go to this dam. We have to make sure we clean it up. And as they clean it up, we are sharing more messages of cohesive cohesive collaboration. They're getting to know each other more. They're getting to learn more about nature, more about the trees and the vegetation that can be useful around the local dam and this entire kind of thing. I actually worked with a friend of mine called Geoffrey from Germany, who was actually doing his master's education, his master's degree when he visited this side. And the people thought there was some help going to come in. And Geoffrey was only a student, so he promised he would make a movie to fundraise for the kind of thing. But I'm very glad that even without the movie coming back or something, the people have picked up and they can actually clean their own water source. They can visit it more often, and they have even created planting games around the whole area to make sure the whole area is reforested again, and we can have clean water in our pipes. So I believe
you have so much to teach us, just how to get it done.
Yeah, sure. So everyone that is actually working to make water a good thing for the population to carry on the balance of water, whatever you're doing is actually very powerful, and nature is going to be supporting you. The universe is going to be supporting you to make sure this heals. Every time you talk to people about nature, everyone knows the problem they can face when nature is. For example, when there's no water in the taps, everyone knows how much we all suffer. So people are going to connect very much to the visions that we use, that we connect with nature. So I want to empower all of you, because I don't know what your community is like, but you might find some resistance, and sometimes you feel like maybe I should start thinking about doing other things and let nature be. Please don't give up on nature, and nature has never given up on us. So we should actually go on and fight for this. I feel like very soon we are going to have a real movement that blows up and everyone is aware of nature.
Yeah,
Every family, every home should be organized around protecting the planet first, and then we can have our other responsibilities coming in next. Yeah. Just that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You're so inspirational. Definitely. I do feel like we're reaching critical mass. I feel in the last 2 years, there's definitely been an upwelling, like a groundswell that I'm sensing and feeling in terms of people's responses. And Eve, definitely reach out to me, because I do have contacts in other New York boroughs for water advocates and water stewards there.
I will, for sure. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much. Are we able to save the chat automatically? I'll just copy and paste it. Yeah, if you want to keep the links that have been put in the chat, just go ahead and copy it. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Charles did post something way up at the top about the example of natural virtue, and the idea that you know, we look at a forest and think of you know, the ROI on that and how much money we can make from this forest, but the forest is gone. Like, once it's gone, and it's a lot harder to bring it back than it is to just leave it intact and retain what remains of our natural ecosystem, and then really actively, as Mohengi says, really actively regenerating, and then in that regeneration, we're actually revitalizing our entire world, not just the natural world, but our human world and our animal world and our bird world, and so that is the movement that's lifting, I think, here. So thank you all. I appreciate it, and see you on the flip side.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice being here. Goodbye.
Thank you, Kareem.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.